You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining us today, Justin Hokanson of AuburnLive.com. Hoke, there has been so much happening that we get to talk about today amongst the Auburn football landscape. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm great.
Yeah. It sounds very tired. Sounds a very tired response with we're recording this a few minutes before the basketball game. So no, it'll be a late one, but that's good. All right. So lot to talk about. We got Mike Bobo news as far as him being out as the offensive coordinator, which you guys broke over at AuburnLive.com. Of course, the transfer portal news. Let's start with offensive coordinator talk. It seems like you guys are more on top of the situation than anyone else is. What do you think was kind of the final straw with the decision from Harsin to let Mike Bobo leave?
Probably the last 4 games didn't help.
Fair enough.
I think the second halves of those games are just not good enough. There was times in the middle of that year where the offense, had its moments, but they just weren't good enough. Period. And in the second half of those games, it's hard to say it's a personnel issue when you score 28 in the first half and 3 in the second half, or 28 in the first half and 6 in the second half. That's a hard. Or 14 in one half and 3 in the other half. That's hard to say personnel because personnel scored 28. So I think that was tough, and that was probably what ultimately did Mike Bobo in. They just have to be better. They have to be better in that offensive room. They have to challenge defenses in more complex ways. They have to put defenses in more conflict than I think what Bobo likes to do, which is his offense had its moments, but unless your talent is elite, that's not an overwhelming. It's a good offense if you have Georgia's talent. Yeah. But if you're Auburn's talent, you're just going to have moments. You're going to have flashes, and that's what happened. So I think they need to be more explosive, and they need to put defenses in more conflict, and that didn't happen enough. Sure.
All right. So as far as the search for Auburn's next offensive coordinator, where should Auburn fans' heads be? I mean, my gut reaction, Hoke, when this all happened was, okay, Eric Kiesau's the guy, but it seems like Harsin and the Auburn football program is looking outside. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would say that's true. Kiesau's there. If Kiesau got the job, that would surprise me, just because if you thought he was good enough to be your offensive coordinator to win in the SEC, why did you bring him on and you didn't even make him receivers coach? Like, I would just be shocking if you brought him on basically as a staffer, then you elevate him to receivers coach 4 games in, and then you just make him your OC. I would be weary of that move. I'm not saying it can't happen, but that would surprise me a little bit, because this Bryan Harsin and this staff are trying to win right now. They're trying to build, obviously, but they're not trying to sacrifice time to build. They're trying to do it at the same time. Build it and win games right now. And there's some good OCs out there, better than Kiesau and better than Bobo. And so that would surprise me. I mean, I wouldn't anticipate a quick hire necessarily. I think Bryan Harsin will take his time and hire the right guy. There's some guys out there that are decent OCs that have connections, like Zach Hill at Arizona State, that has connections to Boise, like Andy Ludwig, who was the OC, who was the quarterback coach of Bryan Harsin at Boise in the 90s, and then has been Vanderbilt, was Derek Mason's OC. So there's some guys with connections there. And then you have like Graham Harrell, who's about to be out at USC as an OC. And then there's Matt Wells, who's at Texas Tech. Those are kind of the 4 names I've sort of heard that all kind of make some logical sense. And if it doesn't go that way, which I think there's some good college coordinators, but I guess there's always the route of a young NFL assistant receivers coach. Go get Joe Brady or Liam Cohen, who's at Kentucky, who came from the Rams. Those guys that's starting to be a popular move. Go to the NFL, get an assistant quarterback coach that's a young, bright mind. That could be an option too.
Yeah, Hoke, I thought this was going to be a quicker thing when it first happened due to recruiting and early signing day being, not too far away. But after looking at all of the potential names, a lot of these coordinators are coaching on Saturday. And so you'd have to think that the news, if it's one of those guys, would have to happen after the 4th. So you thinking next week, or do you think he's really going to take his time?
No, I think it could happen next week. Obviously, they're out recruiting this week combined with some of these guys are playing. Nothing's happening this week.
Yeah.
The one thing I would keep in mind, and I don't know the answer is, we heard rumblings of Mike Bobo being out in September. So at that point, it was more of a fit thing. I mean, it wasn't even necessarily about the offense. It was like, hey, these guys aren't meshing all that well. So it's very possible Bryan Harsin has been – I mean, these guys are always prepared. So it's very possible that Bryan Harsin has potentially reached out to a couple of these guys months ago and said, hey, just if we make a move, just, or something like that. It could have happened. And so it could be, he could be prepared. It's not like he decided, shoot, okay, we got to make a move. I'm going to fire Bobo, and then now I got to do all my due diligence. No, he's got his guys. It's just a matter of timing. So it could happen next week.
Sure. The two names that I think I'm most excited about that I think are realistic hires. I mean, there's some lists out there that say like Joe Brady and stuff. I'm like, I'm not buying that. But the Graham Harrell, which is a name that you put out in the corner message board at auburnlive.com. You did that earlier today. And then Andy Ludwig is one that I saw. And when I read that name at first, I was like, but then I started looking at it as like he led college football with like 3 tight end packages. Like that's exciting. And that seems like that's something that would kind of line up with what Harsin wants to do. So those Hoke are the two that I think excite me the most as far as like the realistic options. Yeah,
I think so. I think Andy Ludwig makes a lot of sense. I think Zach Hill makes a lot of sense.
Tell me about Zach Hill. So he's the OC at Arizona State, right?
Right. Yeah. So he was the OC. He was the OC at Boise under Harsin for like 4 years, and then left to go to Arizona State. And then when he left Boise, Keesaw took over. So Zach Hill literally has already been Harsin's OC for multiple years, and just left for a quote unquote better job, more high profile, whatever. So I mean that's a guy that has already been hired by Harsin and kept on for 4 years. So that's where he comes from. Graham Harrell would. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I reached out to some Arizona State folks. Yeah. Just kind of like, what's the mood over there? Yeah. And they kind of got the feeling that, okay, they were a little surprised that Herm Edwards is going to stick around for another season. And he kind of got the vibe that Hill and all of the coaches were going to kind of stay with Herm one more year. So I was kind of a little surprised when they said all that.
So, yeah, well, yeah. And but, possibly, but if that situation is sort of murky, then to me, it makes more reason for that guy potentially to leave. I mean, he certainly is feeling like, is Herm going to get another year? I mean, you pass up a chance to be OC in the SEC. And so, I don't know, the Graham Harrell will be interesting. I mean, that's a bright young mind. Obviously, we all remember Graham Harrell at Texas Tech with Michael Crabtree and just the insane numbers he put up. And, and so well thought of. Obviously, USC didn't have a great year. But he's well thought of. That'd be interesting merging his style. Obviously, he comes from Mike Leach. He runs it more than Mike Leach, but that would be, you're talking about Bryan Harsin, somebody who's all about physical. We have to run the ball. You go from somebody that like to run the eye sometimes in Bobo to Harrell would be an interesting change. I mean, that's two, to me, Harrell and Bobo, that's two different dynamics there. So I would wonder what direction Harsin's trying to go here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Justin Hokanson, our guest today. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Omaha Steaks. It is the holiday season, and Omaha Steaks is offering a special perfect gift package price of a box full of goodies for $99.99. You get 4 bacon wrapped filet mignons, 4 boneless chicken breasts, 4 Omaha steak burgers, a ton of things in this box. It's the best deal that they've ever had over at Omaha Steaks. Go to omahasteaks.com and enter college in the search bar to order. It's not a promo code. You have to type college in like you're searching for the product on their website, and then it redirects you. It's the perfect gift package for $99.99. You get 24 entrees like the world famous beef wrap filet mignons. When you use code college, you'll also get an additional 8 Omaha steak burgers free with your order. We've all heard reports about shortages and shipping delays, so don't wait. Order the perfect gift package at omahasteaks.com and use that keyword college. Our guest today, Justin Hokanson of auburnlive.com. How can folks sign up? I mean, this is the time to sign up. You guys are leading the way with recruiting scoop as well as OC coaching search scoop. How can folks sign up today?
Yeah, man, auburnlive.com on 3 Sports Network. But yeah, auburnlive.com. We actually just got done running a special. I hope a bunch of people took advantage of that Black Friday deal. But yeah, auburnlive.com. You can go in there. We have a 7-day free trial all the time. So you can always pop on there. And right now, between coaching search and recruiting, you'll know in a week. You're going to get a good bit of action here in a week right now, and you'll know whether you want to be a part of the site or not. So come on, sign up for a week. Sign up for the week leading up to early signing day. That would be smart. Let's see how it goes. And then you get a lot of good stuff there. So auburnlive.com. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's worth every penny. So how do you think the OC hire will impact the assistant coaches, the position coaches on the offensive side of the football? Do you think whoever it is will want to bring in at least 1 or 2 of their own hires? What do you think about that?
Oh, interesting question. I would have to think so. But that's an interesting dynamic. One, you start with Eric Keesaw, who came over with Harsin, was just elevated.
Right.
I can't see Harsin just turn around and letting that guy get kicked out. Whether it's receivers coach or whether he moves to another position potentially, but that'll be a tricky one.
Most vulnerable one is offensive line, right?
Yeah. Will Friend is vulnerable. Yeah. Well, he's so close with Bobo. And honestly, in September, when we were hearing stuff about Bobo, that was Friend too. Like they were kind of, hey, that trio is not necessarily meshing. Now, Friend is around until they hire an OC, and then we'll see. So I'd say that's definitely up in the air. I'd have to think Caddy's job is fairly safe. I mean, I don't, Cadillac's a Hall of Famer, like college Hall of Famer type running back, obviously a legacy at Auburn, a good recruiter. They're talking about landing Trey Citizen, one of the best running backs in the country. Can you imagine turning around and letting go of the running back coach who's played at Auburn, who got that guy and got Tank?
There's also an element of you want to keep Tank Bigsby happy, right?
Yeah. So that would be, and running back coach, let's be real. Like it's the least, like,
yeah,
you could kind of go put a receiver at running back coach. I mean, no offense, but it's not the most technical. Like if you can recruit, that's where you put them.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. Yeah. So Will Friend is probably the most likely to be out. You agree with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. As far as the recruiting aspect of this hire, what are you guys hearing over at auburnlive.com in regards to like the priority of the OC needing to be a recruiter? Because a lot of people are saying like Bryan Harsin's great, really like him. He gets his team ready as much as he can, but the talent acquisition still kind of up in the air as far as people judging him after one season here at Auburn. I mean, do you get a guy that maybe is a little bit better at recruiting than the scheme or at this time during Harsin's tenure?
No. I would say you better get a guy who can scheme it up. Because, and the reason I say that is, first of all, being able to recruit is like a default in the SEC. I mean, if you're not a pretty good recruiter, I don't even care. But I would say scheme because look, like I said, Harsin and that staff are trying to win immediately. If he doesn't come out next year, look, this is the landscape we're in. If he doesn't win 8 games next year, let's say he wins 6 or 7 again, I'm just telling you he'll be on the hot seat. That's the landscape we're in. And I know the temperature of fans and boosters that maybe didn't hire him in the first place. And they're going to be like, it's going to put him on the hot seat, whether we like it or not. So his quickest way, he has got to win 8 games next year. He's got to win next year. And recruiting, you're not going to go land a class that quickly. You're going to have to do it with the guys mostly that you have there. Maybe you go get an impact player in the transfer portal. Maybe a true freshman makes an impact. But a large part of your success is going to have to come from what you got now and maybe a few guys in the portal. So you better get somebody who can scheme it up and win next year. Still got to bulk up the recruiting staff and recruit, but you got to win 8 games next year, man.
Hoke, who surprised you the most at the time of us recording? There's only been 5 guys that have entered the transfer portal from Auburn so far. Of those 5 guys, who surprised you the most?
Probably
Tennyson or Shivers?
Probably Tennyson. Just because he did get in, late in the season, he played more and he's a good player. And, McCreary's going to go pro. And I think there's opportunities there. He's a good player.
Yeah.
And I think there'd be opportunities. But if Derek Mason's not going anywhere and you thought you should have played more, then you got to wonder, okay, what do I have to do? Shivers to me is sort of same boat as Tennyson. Like, played a little bit, saw his playing time diminish. And wants to, he feels like he's good enough to go play somewhere and be a, 1,000-yard back or something and use his speed. That guy wants to run. He didn't want to just be so limited. So probably one of those two. Yeah.
Tennyson, I could see like his path to being on the field a lot more next year. Shivers' a situation, assuming, Tank doesn't leave. Shivers' situation pretty much stays the same. So I definitely get why he would want to leave.
Yeah. Shivers, look, we all appreciate him. I've always kind of said, look, he's not the, he's just, I thought he was on the field about as much as he should be on the field. He's just, there's limitations to him. There's things he can do, but he probably wishes he had more going on, but it is what it is.
Right. Hoke, thank you for joining us for a few minutes. Tell folks one more time how they can sign up at auburnlive.com.
Yeah, man. AuburnLive.com is my dog. My dog's a very big supporter. AuburnLive.com.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I love dogs.
Little Tito. AuburnLive.com, on 3 Sports, but AuburnLive.com. Go subscribe. 7-day free trial. Get on it. Be a part of the community.
Awesome. Thank you, Hoke.
You got it, man.
Thank you so much to Hoke for joining us. In just a moment, we'll talk about the Auburn basketball game from last night. Big win for the Auburn Tigers. Today's show brought to you by our friends at betonline.ag. BetOnline has you covered all season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football season continues its march to the playoffs, obviously in the NFL, bowl season is almost here for college football, but also as the NBA starts to pick up, they've got everything at betonline.ag. Head over to their new updated website at betonline.ag. And when you make your first deposit, use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. It's free money to play with, folks. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the Tigers defeat the UCF Knights 85-68 last night. I think that's something that the Tiger fans will be excited about. Love the defensive performance and the offensive performance in the second half. I mean, that's a theme that we've seen over the course of, I'll say, the whole season. I mean, it's just the second half has been a lot better for the Tigers so far this season. In the first half, they shot 40%. In the second half, they shot 45%. 45% obviously is something that you want to see. And UCF, they showed a graphic during the broadcast that at one point during the second half, UCF had missed like 13 of its last 14 shots. So that's obviously something that's good for the Tigers moving forward. As far as everything that happened in regards to the starters, Katie Johnson is a lightning rod and one of the more exciting players I think we'll get to see during Bruce Pearl's tenure. The more we watch this dude, the more we absolutely love him. And from a shooting standpoint, he's not always extremely efficient, but it's the hustle that you see on both sides of the court that turns into, ridiculous interceptions that he takes around and does the spin around dunk. But 11 points, which you think is fine. 3 of 11 shooting is not good. 1 of 6 from 3 for Katie Johnson is not good, but he gets to the free throw line and went 4 or 5 from the charity stripe, which you love. 2 rebounds, 2 assists. And he had that steal across 29 minutes. His plus minus was plus 12, so that's pretty good. Jabari Smith was incredible. His 20 points on 6 of 12 shooting, but he was 3 of 6 from behind the arc. You got to love that. 5 of 6 from free throws, 7 rebounds in just 21 minutes. He had a plus minus of 24 in 21 minutes played. You have to absolutely love that. But Walker Kessler, I mean, the giant himself, 8 of 14 from the floor, 0 for 3 from 3. He has not been good from 3 this season. I think he only has 2 makes, and I think he has double-digit misses. I'd love to know what his clip from 3 is in practice, because for Bruce Pearl to continue to give him the green light for that shot, he must be making it. And maybe that's something I'll ask Zep next week when he joins the show. But 17 points for Kessler, 14 rebounds. He had 6 blocks and 2 steals. I mean, what an incredible performance. 31 minutes, and his plus minus was 14. I'm actually surprised it's not higher than that. But, man, I love watching Walker Kessler play. I mean, how many guys that are built like that? You saw him stand at the top of the key. He kind of does a jab, and then he attacks the basket. And that's just not something you see a whole lot of from guys that are built like that, especially as he's a sophomore. Spent his freshman season at UNC. But, man, I don't know, Auburn has had tall dudes before, and I think about like Austin Wiley, and no disrespect to Austin Wiley, because I think his senior season he was a really solid basketball player, but there's just so many dudes, and Auburn's played against 7-footers, all the time, even, in non-conference teams where like they'll have a 7-footer or a 6'11" guy, and they just don't move very well. Walker Kessler is not that. Walker Kessler moves extremely well, and I think that's something that Auburn fans have noticed and appreciated early on in this in his tenure here. But man, Bruce Pearl has absolutely nailed the transfers with Katie Johnson from Georgia, Walker Kessler from North Carolina, Zep Jasper from Charleston, and then obviously Wendell Green from the Ohio Valley Conference. But Jasper just 3 points on the night, but man, what an incredible defender Zep Jasper is. Let's see, Zep Jasper's plus minus was 5 across 27 minutes. I'm surprised he didn't register a steal, but man, that dude is just locked down on point guards, and you can tell that he loves it. You can tell that he enjoys covering the guy when he has the basketball. And he's talked about the difference on this show. He's talked about the difference of, him approaching defense when he's guarding the guy with the ball versus an playing off-ball defense. But you can definitely tell when he is guarding the point guard, when it's that press defense going back and forth like it was against UCF last night, that's something where he feels really comfortable playing. So you love to see it. Overall, it was a little sloppy at times, but Auburn just has these bursts of 3 or 4 minutes of offensive explosion where it's like, okay, UCF isn't just, they're not going to be able to keep up with Auburn when they play like that, which is expected. I think the betonline.ag line was Auburn by 10.5, and they would have covered because good teams win, great teams cover. So you got to love that. But the Tigers take on Yale on Saturday, and actually Charlie 5 and I will be live from Baumhauer's for that game. I'm doing after the game basketball edition on ESPN 106.7. You can check that out at espnau.com if you want to listen live. I think we'll podcast it as well. The station will, but there you go. Yale is a team that Auburn should be able to beat. And the graphic that they showed during the broadcast on the ESPN Plus broadcast with Auburn's record, they were like 55-8. So I guess now they're 56-8 over the last 4 seasons in conference play. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's really, really impressive. I mean, there were several games ahead of Arkansas was second best over the last 4 seasons. What Auburn's done in the non-con has been pretty cool. And like the announcer said during the broadcast, Auburn has scheduled good teams. Now, a lot of them they've lost. A lot of that 8 is like Gonzaga and Baylor, and I guess UConn from earlier this season. But Duke would be in there, and then they lost to UCF last year. So I mean that's most of the 8 right there. But still, it's just amazing how far this team has come. And one thing, just from a program building standpoint, we've got to figure this out as a basketball program, and I don't know how you do it. And I'm sure this happens in other places that are good at basketball. I just haven't noticed it, but I'd love to know what they do like in Kentucky or North Carolina, basketball schools, Duke. But they've got to fix the scholarship seating. The big money boosters and the blue seats across from the student section. There has to be a way to fix that, to get butts in seats to that are close to the court. There has to be a way to fix that. And obviously, the folks with money deserve their seats because they're paying for the program to, be able to afford things, but there's got to be a better way to go about that. But bottom line, this Auburn basketball team, I really, really like what they've done so far this season, and they just continue to get a little bit better. They're starting to play together a little bit more. Jabari Smith is slowly turning into a lottery pick. I think you can already kind of see the early signs of it. There was one play towards the end of the game where, he just made a guy miss, and he just extended his arm and he just underhanded it in. And it just looks easy. Basketball looks easier for Jabari Smith than everyone else on the court. And that's something that's exciting. There's no question about it. So on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Auburn, it'll be a Ferg Friday. Justin Ferguson of the Auburn Observer joins us, as he does every Friday. We'll talk about the transfer portal. There's rumors still swirling around with Bo Nix. Perhaps we'll know more by then. And, of course, get his thoughts on the offensive coordinator gig. Who replaces Mike Bobo? So all that and more coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Auburn, wherever you get your podcasts, also on YouTube. Please click that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. See you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.